Welcome to Healing the Trauma Within Summit. In this session, I'm speaking with Maggie Chilton about how to release your trauma without reliving it. But let me tell you a little bit about Maggie before we get started. Maggie is a creatrix transformologist. That is a mouthful. Creatrix transformologist, RHN, author, speaker, keynote speaker, and recent winner of a Clinical Excellence Award. She's on a mission to empower women to set themselves free, to help them transition into a life that they are excited about, a life that they love, where they can grow into who they truly are and be free of their blocks, past traumas, and past events that hold them back. She proves that you can release trauma without having to relive it. So welcome, Maggie.
Thank you for having me here. This is fantastic. I'm very, very excited to be here.
I am excited to have you. You know, I am all about releasing trauma. I prefer to use that term rather than recovery, because I feel like recovery just means that we're talking about recovering from an illness or a disease, where release is letting it go, and it just feels so much more empowering.
100%.
So, Maggie, first of all, what is Creatrix Transformologist?
So a transformologist is really what I am. And a transformologist is someone who can get irreversible change in another human being. That's what transformologist means. And creatrix it's a method within, it's a method within a modality that we use.
Is this something that you created yourself? Or
no, it's something a lady called Maz Sharma in Australia created about 8 or 9 years ago through personal experience.
Okay. Interesting. I'll have to look into that. So we're going to talk about how to release our traumas today. So how do we let go? Something that we've held on to so tight and for so long. How do we let go?
I think first and foremost, you have to be ready, right? You have to be right and ready, right? To use, because there's lots of different methods to release trauma, and some are right for you and some are not right for you, and it's figuring out which one I think really resonates with you in order for you to get that transformation. But being ready is the first part, because if you're not ready to release it and you want to hold on to it, maybe it identifies you, or you don't even know it's there. You're going through something, or you're angry or something, and you don't even, because I was like that for a long time. I was going through emotional trauma. I didn't even know I was in it until I was out of it. And I was like, oh, that's what that was. But I had to be ready to release it.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think one of the first steps to being ready that I always tell people is you have to accept that it actually happens. If you don't accept it, then you're still living in denial.
And I think sometimes, well, not sometimes, so like every single client that I've worked with, they're all women. I only work with women. They've all experienced trauma in childhood, bar none. And so sometimes they can tell me exactly what it is. Sometimes they don't even know, but they know the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that come up for them. And that's what we work on. They don't have to revisit it, but they have these thoughts, they have these feelings, they have these beliefs. They perhaps know stem from somewhere, but they're not quite sure where.
Do you think most of us at one point or another have experienced some form of trauma in our childhood?
I don't think you can get away from it. It depends on levels, right? Levels of
it may not be big T trauma, it may be little T trauma, but I think at some point or another we've all experienced some form of trauma in our childhood.
Like I grew up as a single parent family. Like my mom left my dad they separated when I was about 1. And to me, that's just how it was. That's the trauma to a 1-year-old. Mm-hmm. But it was just something that I accepted. But that happens more often than not now. And it could be from very small to very big, and it's how you process that, if you process it, and when you process it. And I'm still processing things, and I'm going to be 52 this month. I'm still having those aha moments and thinking, oh, okay, I can relate that back to XYZ.
I hear you. I'm almost 50 and I'm doing the same thing.
You look amazing.
Well, so do you. I was like, there's no way you're going to be 52.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I trip over my tongue. I say all the time that our healing journey is something that we never quite finish. I think it's something that we travel for the rest of our lives.
Right. And as women, you know, we're generational. I mean, men too, but because we grow people, even if we don't do that, we're still capable of doing that. We carry 14, 15, 16, however many generations of trauma, thoughts, feelings, and beliefs with us. And I think it would be fair to say it's probably impossible to get rid of all of that in one lifetime. It would take multiple. But if you start the process, then your generations from you onwards can keep that healing going.
True. And then hopefully one day we'll have a generation without trauma down the road. Not in my lifetime.
No, not in ours. Especially with, you know, sort of what's going on in the world right now, that's going to have a knock-on effect.
This is going to have the pandemic is going to have a lasting effect, and it's been a big trauma for a lot of people. So how do we let go though without reliving it? Because, you know, when you go in and experience the emotions again, you know, you revisit what happened in order to let go of it, everything just kind of pops back up. So how can we stop that?
Not going into too much detail into what I do, but basically the first meeting that you have with a client, sure, they may talk about it, because you want to pull those words from them. Remember that, like, the thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs about that or those situations. But then that's it. When you go into a session, it's not them going into it. They're observing what's going on. So they're observing. They're not in the story. So they can still use those words, those thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that they have told me about, but they're not in the story. So the wisdom that they need comes up and out, but it's sort of separated because we're talking about something or somebody else. It's not them. That make sense?
Almost looking at it from a third person.
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Like a movie's playing out, or, you know, a play is going on, and you're just kind of observing and you're seeing what's going on, and there's characters and people are doing this, that, and the other, and you're separated from it. Right. But we're using the client's thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, those words, that sentence that would have triggered them before, but we're doing it in a safe space where they're not actually the person going through the experience again.
So this is really something that they want to make sure they're in a safe space in order to
absolutely
do this kind of work.
Yeah. And that's the top priority. We have, 6 elements that we incorporate within our therapy modality in order to keep the client safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that. And I agree. You have to be in a safe space. You can't be just willy-nilly trying to go through trauma healing.
You got to trust that person. You got to trust the person that you're talking to, right? Because if you're closing your eyes or you're in a situation, you want to know that, okay, I trust this person. Sure, let's just go. Let's do this. Otherwise, you're going to get that resistance.
True, very true. So we're letting go of our trauma, and we're doing it from watching and observing as opposed to reliving. But how do we actually just kind of let go? This is something that has been in us for so long.
Right. I mean, prepping somebody beforehand is really important. You're having that conversation with the woman and you're saying, are you ready to let this go? What is it going to be like if you hold on to this for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? What is that going to feel like? So you're getting a woman to that point where she's like, I'm ready. I want to do this. Let's go in. Let's do this. Let's get rid of this. So you have to get them to that point where they're like, they just want to do it. Let's just get in there. Let's just get rid of it. Right. And so you have to have a strong, when you're going into, I don't know, a game or a competition or something, you want a strong prep, right? Okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to, because you want to be sort of like not revved up, but you want to be like, hey, I'm going to do this. It's the same thing when you go into a session with women. You want to make sure that this is something that they really do want to get rid of. This is something that they want to move on from, and they just want to get rid of it. So they'll play all out, and they'll do whatever it takes to get rid of that.
Is this something, I mean, I know that we want to create a safe space, and it's always better to do this with a professional, but not everybody can afford to have one or is ready to work with one. How do they do this on their own? How can they let go on their own?
I don't know if they can, to be honest. I mean, there are self-help books that you can use to get you to a certain, I think everything will get you to a certain level. Self-help books, going away on retreats, watching online seminars like the one you're doing will get you to a certain level, but that's the conscious level. So you have to be consciously aware that you are letting it go and you're not letting it affect you. But that subconscious level, it's nigh on impossible to get into when you're living life, because we do a lot of the things subconsciously.
True.
We drive a car, we walk to the store, we do these things unconsciously because we've done it time and time again. And so with trauma, we've held on to it, as you said, for so long, we don't even know that we're doing it unless we consciously catch ourselves in that moment. Oh, I just did that. Okay, got to remember not to do that. So I think, with self-help books and with some other modalities, you can get to a certain level, and that might be enough for someone. That might very well be, if the woman is right and ready, that might very well be the thing that resonates with them. It really depends on the person, I think. But if someone is having a really hard time letting it go, or it's very deep and it's affecting their relationships, their family, their friends, their community, I think that's a different, I don't know if that would be possible to get to really get rid of on that level.
So it really just depends on the trauma itself and where they're at in their healing journey.
Yeah, they may have done a lot of work on themselves, or they may be on that journey to doing a lot of work on themselves and being aware and knowing a couple of other modalities that they've looked into or heard of, or as opposed to someone who has done nothing. Right. And that they're not in that sort of personal development space where maybe they do something fairly small, so to speak, and it works for them, maybe. Whereas somebody who's done a lot of personal development and hasn't had that transformation, they might need that next level. They very will likely need that next level because they've done things that could have potentially really helped them, but it's still there.
Right. And it helps to have that outside observer who's able to point out things that we can't see for ourselves. Absolutely.
Yeah, we always say self can't analyze self. And when you're talking to a woman and you're doing active listening, right? You're just listening to her. She can say the same sentence 3 or 4 times and not even know it. And you're like, okay, that's an issue. This is something that she keeps repeating. Okay. And then when you read the things back to her, she'll most likely say, oh, I didn't even know I said that. Did I really say that? Oh,
right.
We're not even aware of the things that we say in a conversation, that we repeat, that we emphasize, that we move forward, or that we gesture because we're in it. But when you reflect back, this is what I observed. Most women are like, wow, didn't realize.
Right. I've had that happen. It's like, oh, okay. And then once you're aware of it, then it becomes a conscious thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like when you go to Toastmasters and they teach you how to not say all the time. And next thing you know, you're saying it all the time and you're hearing it every single time.
You're like, oops, oops, oops.
Yep. Been there, done that. How much do you think forgiveness plays in releasing our traumas?
I think it has, like, for me, I think it's forgiving yourself.
Yes.
We can't control what other people think and say and do. We can only control us. And so forgiving us, I think, is massive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I completely agree. And, you know, there's so many people out there who are like, we've got to forgive them, whoever them is. And I disagree with that. I really do. You know, if you want to, that's great. But I am all about, you have to forgive yourself. And it's not forgiving yourself necessarily because that happened to you, but it's for the feelings and the emotions that you felt afterward, the self-hatred, the self-loathing, the self-harming, you know, all of that we do to ourselves after a trauma.
Yeah. And there's a lot of it is accepting. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I accept that this happened, or I accept that this person did or said or whatever. I accept that. Moving forward, like I said.
What do we do after we have released the traumas? What do we do next?
Well, for me, that's what, so when I work with women, we have everything inside of us that we need to know. All of the wisdom that we need to heal is inside of us. So that in a session comes up and out. And they learn from that. So it's the reciprocity, right? We're taking out, or they're taking out the trauma. I'm not doing it. They're taking out, but they're also then putting in all the wisdom that they need to move forward.
Wonderful. I love that this is possible without having to relive that trauma. We've already been through enough. We don't need to relive it in our healing journeys.
100%.
Yeah. This has been fantastic, Maggie. Thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom with us and giving us hope that there is life after trauma.
There is. And this summit will be fantastic for everybody on so many different levels. So thank you so much for bringing this to everybody, because this is truly what we need right now.
It's my pleasure. And listeners, thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you in one of the other sessions.